I spent around 200 cycles playing through Citizen Sleeper 2 Starward Vector. I am a massive fan of the first game, so I devoured the sequel in just a few sittings. I'd like to just tell you how that went, but I'm trying to have a more critical angle here. Plus, I don't want to spoil the whole game for you because I want you to check it out for yourself. So either way, it's time for a title sequence. I put up those spoiler warnings out of courtesy, but the reality is your playthrough won't look like mine. How we choose to spend our time out there in the belt will be different. Just like rolling a set of dice, the outcome is going to vary. That's what I want to talk about. How, on multiple levels, playing Citizen Sleeper feels like rolling dice. That's going to be our object lesson for today. I love dice. I like to play board games. I'm a giant D&D nerd. There's so much drama in rolling the dice, whether it's a standard 6-sided die with classic pips or a tabletop D20.
Oh, we all know my rolls aren't that good. And yet...
Oh, please clip that, Artem.
Citizen Sleeper uses the 6-sided style, although they're not so much rolled as they are randomly generated at the start of each new day, aka cycle. Also, they have their own little patterns, and I love that. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me bring you up to speed first. For those who never played Citizen Sleeper 1, I'll summarize. Here's another spoiler alert for the sake of being polite. Okay, so the game obviously takes place in outer space, but it's a very dystopian future out there. Megacorporations are working people to the bone. Space scrappers are doing whatever they can to get by. Most people are having a bad time, and so are you. You are an indentured servant, working off a debt you basically won't ever be able to finish. And to facilitate this never-ending workload, your human consciousness has been placed into one of the titular sleepers. In short, you used to be a human with a lot of debt, but now you're a robot working off that debt. Throughout the game, you meet plenty of other folks who are down on their luck like you, and the few who are well off tend to be more, morally bad. That should give you a general idea of how this universe operates. I won't go into the specific plot points or endings of the first game, but I will talk about how the sequel starts. You actually play as a different sleeper this time, and you've been slaving away in a space colony called Darkside. The tutorial sees you fleeing from that turf, and its gang leader named Lane. He's the one who owns you, so to speak, so the main challenge in the sequel is to escape him. The tutorial is also where you get to roll your first dice. This is the core gameplay mechanic of Citizen Sleeper, so I want to kick things off by talking about dice in the most literal sense. The vast majority of actions in this game are based on a dice roll, though you're not rolling a physical or even digital die to do so. Instead, each new cycle gives you a random set of 5 pre-rolled dice. Each one can have 1 to 6 pips, and you'll slot them into whatever activity you're doing at the moment. That could be working at a scrapyard, doing recon in the city streets, or explicitly dangerous tasks like mining an asteroid. As solo developer Gareth Damian Martin puts it, the beauty of making a game that is based on dice is you can have the player do anything. The dice are just the mechanic for resolving whatever conflict or challenge occurs. The stronger die you choose for each instance, the better chance you have of getting a good outcome. Of course, things don't always work out. That's how rolling the dice goes. Every chance you take can bring a positive, neutral, or negative outcome. Positive results come with some sort of bonus, neutral results complete the task at hand with nothing extra, and negative results hurt the sleeper. Depending on the risk, that hurtful thing could be expending extra energy or even incurring a point of stress. The risk-reward you take on with every task is what makes Citizen Sleeper so exhilarating. If you run out of energy but force yourself to roll again, you'll take stress no matter what. If that stress builds up too high, your dice start to deteriorate and eventually break. You've only got 5 per cycle to start, and if they all break, that's a massive penalty for the rest of the game on normal difficulty, and permadeath on the highest. Talk about gambling with your life. Thankfully, dice can be repaired, but it's not a get-out-of-jail-free card. They'll glitch for a little while before stabilizing, which puts your rolls in even more jeopardy if you try to use them. You're not guaranteed to fail with a glitch dice, but when you've got limited dice to roll and limited time beyond that, it's a bigger risk. Speaking of time, we have to talk more about cycles. How you spend each day and even the individual activities within that day are metaphorical dice rolls themselves. I'm reminded of Persona's calendar system sometimes, and how each day I have to choose whether I want to resupply, spend time exploring, or embark on story and side missions. In fact, Citizen Sleeper 2 puts hard deadlines on many of those missions. This is tragedy on a time budget. You're going to have to make some tough binary decisions out there, and since the game operates on an autosave system, there's no going back. You can't forget about Lane either. The gang leader wants you back, and you'll have to periodically jump between space stations to avoid his grasp. This cat and mouse game with Lane is the backdrop that adds urgency to the daily schedule, but you've still got to roll the dice in your regular activities on top of that. Major tasks can't be done with a single dice roll, or even a full cycle's worth of rolls in many cases. You have to constantly weigh the options of working to collect more money, exploring the site where your ship is currently docked, or preparing for optional contracts that will eat up your time, fuel, and supplies. Those contracts, which is what the game calls side quests, aren't going to complete themselves. As you can imagine, they also come with their own set of risks and rewards. I'd even say they have the most clear-cut and engaging dice rolls in the entire game. Let me give you an example. If you play your cards right on the far spindle, you'll learn about a frozen asteroid that could be used as a crucial water source. You'll then be contracted to fly to the asteroid and scope it out.
If you're getting Magic School Bus flashbacks right now, you're not alone.
Space might not have the same rules as Earth, but you know what? Ice can still crack and break out there. If you push too deep into the asteroid, it'll shatter, and that'll be the end of that contract. Thankfully, I was able to complete my primary objective while also exploring an abandoned mine shaft dug into the same asteroid. I wish I could say the same for my very first contract, which I received in the game's first hub, the Hexport. I was trying to extract a valuable core from a derelict ship, but I blew it. The wreck fell apart, and the contract wasn't fulfilled. These failures lead to an inevitable feeling of what if. What if I had been smarter with my choices on the derelict job? What if I hadn't been careful on the frozen asteroid? What if I had spent more time gathering supplies or exploring a totally different station instead? You insert literal dice into specific tasks in Citizen Sleeper, but you also figuratively roll the dice and take a risk every time you choose to do one action over another. Limited time and resources mean everything is a trade-off, and sometimes your decisions can hurt someone other than yourself. You're not alone out there, and you weren't alone in the first game either, but in Citizen Sleeper 2, you get to build a crew and travel all around the belt with your new shipmates. The same literal and figurative dice rolls apply to them too. On contracts, it's literal. One of the best additions in the sequel is that your crewmates have 2 dice of their own, so you have to consider everyone's areas of expertise when you pick a pair of them to accompany you on a job. Bad rolls and stress apply to them too, and you can even push them further by taking a hit to your own stress to empower their dice. Beyond what you're choosing to do as a player, these characters are taking a risk by even joining up with you. Surviving out there in space is its own roll of the dice, and everyone who teams up with you is making one. Take Seraphim for example. He's like your Han Solo, the buddy/pilot who always seems to know a guy. He's with you from the very start, helping you with that initial escape from Darkseid. In that sense, he's a safe bet when it comes to these dice roll relationships. His personal quest is beyond the scope of the spoiler warning I gave you earlier, but he's worth mentioning in this video as a sounding board to help you evaluate the trustworthiness of other potential crew members. One of my favorites is Junie, a computer whiz who wants to learn more about Solheim, a defunct megacorporation that used to operate in the belt. In fact, that's why she tags along as a stowaway to that derelict ship I brought up earlier. Even though things didn't work out for me on that contract, victory was only even possible because of the dice she brought to the table. I was actually pretty bummed out when she left the crew on the far spindle, and delighted when she made a surprise return at the Hellion Gate. Once again, her expertise came in handy as we looked for more Solheim tech. So she stowed away, but Seraphim and I took a risk letting her help with the job despite that. Later on, she joined the crew permanently and became one of my most trusted partners. As a metaphorical dice roll, Junie was a big success. Considering she walked away with legit Solheim tech later on, her dice roll of joining my crew was also a win. My what if about failing that first contract at the derelict ship melted away, as we redeemed ourselves together as crewmates.
Still keeping the spoilers to a minimum here, but I really would encourage you to play the game for yourself so you can see how all these crew stories wrap up.
And on that note, we're gonna wrap this video up too. We've rolled enough dice. Let's take a look at the results. First, the literal dice. They're used to measure how successful you are at your daily tasks, carry you through quest inflection points, and gamble on the outcomes of various activities. There is a ton of board game influence on Citizen Sleeper and its sequel, so it's no surprise that dice rolls are the core gameplay mechanic. But then, on another level, every choice you make is a metaphorical dice roll. You must always weigh your options when deciding what to do and who to trust. Sometimes the results are bad, like failing a contract at a derelict ship. Other times, they have a great result, like taking on Junie as an unproven crew member. And of course, these same literal and figurative dice apply to all of those crew members too. They bring their actual dice to the table during contracts, and they take on their own risks throughout their personal story arcs. I love dice, so seeing how Citizen Sleeper 2 utilizes them in both direct and thematic ways leaves me feeling so satisfied. It's okay that the rolls don't always go in my favor. It's okay to wonder what if. There's a simple joy in just letting the dice roll and seeing where they take you.
Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. If you like what I'm doing here on Framework, please hit that subscribe button in the middle. It would help me out an awful lot if you do. And if you want to check out what I've already cooked up, you can hit that link on the far left. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.